Yo, what's up, universe? It's Shaman Geronimo. Today, I wanted to tell you guys the time I took too much acid and almost died. So, I'm telling this story so that you guys can learn from my mistakes and take much more precaution, learn from this, because LSD is not something to be messed with. Not something. And all the times that I took too much, I have many stories on here where that's how it begins, is I took too much acid. And then I wound up with a crazy story. It was never worth it. It was never fun. It was never intended. It was an accident, and like you're gonna see in this story, literally almost died. So, learn from my mistake. So I was living with my aunt at the time. We shared an apartment. I was like 18, and I was taking a tab like maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, and smoking weed, playing music. That was my thing. I was playing guitar at the time. Thought I was going to be a rock star. Maybe I still will be. I don't know. And so, that music and psychedelics can go hand in hand for a lot of people. And it was helping me. It certainly was. But I wanted to have a spiritual experience. So I bought like 7 tabs or something. And I had a tolerance, so I think I took three or 4. And then I waited an hour. Then I waited 2 hours. And with this batch, I don't know if there's different types of acid going out that take longer to get absorbed or whatever. But I held it under my tongue and I waited like 2.5 hours. I remember waiting a really long time and checking the clock and being like, "Ah, man, these are duds." And that's when I made the biggest mistake. Maybe one of the biggest mistakes of my life. It could have been. And I decided to take the other 3 or 4, whatever it was. Because I was like, I want to feel something. So I took those, and then I start feeling it. An hour later, like it starts coming on. And I remember calling my friend and talking to him. He was the one that like hooked me up with it. And I was like, "Yeah, dude, like I didn't think they were working, so I ended up taking all of them." And he's like, "You what?" And so I tried to block that out of my mind. I was like, I'll be all right. But he gave me a warning. And at that point, I probably should have told my aunt, probably to watch after me. So if you ever go through a similar situation, it's really smart to tell someone so you don't end up killing yourself or doing something crazy. So I didn't tell my aunt. I remember I was meditating in my room against the wall. And she came in to say goodnight, but she thought I was like just sleeping right there because I had my eyes closed. And then she left me alone. But I started seeing in like multiple realities. I was like in Egypt watching the pyramids get built and just different places, like watching New York, like all these different places, like rise and fall, like civilization. And it was like multiple. And so it was a crazy, cool dream until fear started creeping in. So at first it just started with a little fire. There's a fire in the distance. And I was like, "Oh, my room's on fire." And then it kind of was like my room was on fire and I was kind of like panicking. Some part of me still knew it was fake or, imaginary. But because of that fear, like being triggered, more events started happening that were kind of like freaking me out that I was seeing in these visions or whatever. And it was getting more real to the point where someone walking down the street fires a gun and like I'm seeing this all. And then the bullet goes through the window and then time freezes. And I look right here and there's a bullet just like frozen in time. And I'm just like, what is real? And that's when I made the most stupid mistake of my life and I jumped out the window. So we were in apartments, so I was not only 2 floors up, it was about 2.5 floors up, and I could have dropped 3 levels down because there was a level below that went underground, and I missed the underground layer, like just barely. Somehow I landed. There was a bar that was like kind of blocking that area off, that someone else's window down there. And so I landed on this bar, just my butt, coincidentally. Like, what are the chances that I didn't get hurt at all? But at the time, after I hit myself, I seemed to just like zone out. and I saw like, I was looking through different realities, and one of them I landed because there were spikes on the bar, and I landed like on it, and it stabbed me, and I was bleeding everywhere, but there was like multiple realities that I was in, and so and then another one I was getting like mugged or something. So all this crazy stuff was still going on, and then my aunt finally like heard something. She heard something, like the whole thing happened, and this seemed like hours passed by until she finally came out. But it must have been like 5 minutes because she heard the window screen pop and something, a lot of noise. So I remember she came and looked down at me, and I was looking up at her, and I could tell right away that she thought I was dead. She, like, just the way she said my name, it was like, Jeremy. And it was just like, it was like this feeling I've never felt it before. I was like, oh man, I really fucked up. But I was like watching this whole event happen from above, and it was really crazy. Like, I don't know if this is real or imagined or what's the difference, who knows. But it was a very crazy experience. And she said my neck was all twisted weird, and like it just looked like I was dead. And then suddenly, like, I was back in my body, and like I was like, oh, I'm fine. She's like, what's the matter? I'm like, oh, I'm on acid. Yeah, she got really mad at me. Let's just say that. But I went back inside, and I seemed to be sober. Somehow I went to sleep. I guess I laid down and just went to sleep. It was very bizarre. But I didn't know that LSD has that potential that can literally alter, like make things imaginary into the dream world. I mean, into reality. Like, you can actually see things that, I know you can hallucinate, and I've always gotten like the different, the waviness and lights, like seeing all the colors and just a regular light, but nothing like this. Especially, I'm especially talking about this because your fears can get activated, and it can create a temporary psychosis where you think something's going on. You could think you're being chased. There's been other times where I felt like the government was listening to me on my phone, and I got really paranoid. So it's just something to be talked about more, and you're not being a hero. Like, the more acid you could take, and then if anything, if you're not using it smartly, you're being a dumbass. And I just wanted to talk about this, so hopefully someone else doesn't make the same mistake I did. So always, less is always more. This plant isn't like other plants. I mean, this substance isn't like a lot of other substances where you can take, oh, it's okay, you get a little too high, oh, you'll be all right. No, this can completely turn your world, your reality inside out. And if you're not ready for this, then you can get mind blown. You could kill yourself. Like, I'm lucky to be alive, I just hit my butt, like I said, on the bar. I missed the 2 spikes, even though in another reality, I landed on those. So I don't know if I survived in one reality, and that's the reality that I'm living in, and I died in another one. I don't know how it works exactly, but it's not a game of dice that I necessarily want to play, So, and you shouldn't either. So, hope you found this helpful. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.